It shows recording.
Okay. Comments from citizens present? Other than Julie and George, I don't see anyone else, so I'm assuming not. Approval of the October 13th, 2020 minutes.
This is Katie. Yeah, I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. License and permits. Application for Class B fermented malt beverage and Class C wine license by Grace Coffey Middleton LLC, doing business as Grace Coffey, located at 1824 Parmenter Street, Carlos Falcone, 432 West Gorham Street, Madison, agent.
Yeah, and Carlos was invited to this via email. I know Lori invited him. I'm looking at a copy of that. No issue with him as far as the history or anything. The only issue I saw is he had a pretty generic premise description initially. It was just all the alcohol will be stored under key behind our service counter, and the management will have access. All our employees are over 21 years old. So it didn't really address where the alcohol was going to be other than the address, 1824 Parmenter Street. So I just asked Lori to follow up with him. Did clarify a little bit and said we're going to serve in our store premises, and in the summer times when weather permits, we would like to be able to serve in our outdoor patio at outdoor tables. That is the Hellbox, former Hellbox business there. So as long, I guess, as you guys are comfortable with that premise description, I don't.
Is the patio considered that Parmenter Street side of the store?
You know, I think so. I can't picture anything on the north side along Hubbard. That would be enough space. But
they do have some picnic tables there.
They do, okay.
And they do have some on the other side where the garage doors are also. Okay. So they do have them on three sides. Originally, when I read the description of what was going in here, it was going to be cocktails, and now this is only beer and wine.
They're on a waiting list for the full
okay.
liquor. There are no quota licenses right now because, my understanding, I talked a little bit about the last council meeting. There was that X Golf and then the Holiday Inn. So, they both got those, so they're on a waiting list.
Yeah. So this is the waiting list thing. Okay.
Yep. Perfect. So other than that premise description, I didn't have any issues as long as it's again confined to their property.
Mm-hmm. They won't be doing anything different than what Hellbox did either, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I just, like I said, it was very generic. He didn't actually necessarily answer those questions in number 3 there for the premise description. He did address where it was going to be stored, not so much where it was going to be consumed.
Okay.
Okay, I'd make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Miscellaneous. Additional discussion on the ordinance regarding appointments to city boards, committees, and commissions.
So what you have before you is kind of another draft, but I've worked in some of the actual changes that we look at for some of the committees. I think I got down through about two CLC, but no, I got through CLC. And you'll say I had kind of made some additions to our general provisions there. One note that I've got though is I started to become concerned that now that we've switched the appointment times, I forgot to check and see exactly when an alder who either doesn't run or is defeated in an election, when your term officially ends. But I assume that we have these terms set up to kind of coincide so that new elected officials would sort of take over there. And It seems like if we have an alder appointed for 1-year term, the second year of their term, we might have a, if we change these appointments to happen a little later in the summer rather than kind of the first meetings in the spring after elections, do we run into the problem of kind of having potentially a non-alder or a vacancy created sort of prematurely because we don't have a smooth transition, because an alder that was serving is no longer an alder. Do they continue to still serve in that committee appointment for the residual of the term, or?
Would it say something like appointments with the exception of elected officials?
Yeah, I mean, we could do the all alderperson appointments along the lines of the same schedule that we kind of do now, and then all the citizen appointments start, and are done in May, beginning in June.
Do we get our aldermanic appointments soon after the elections, after we're sworn in, before the next meeting?
No, not necessarily, but they're usually within, I mean, it's traditionally, we have gotten them by the second meeting in April.
Right.
Traditionally, sometimes they go a little further, but I thought for the alders, we just run it, when your term is over, you can only serve on the committee for the length of time of your term. So if you're voted out the first week, then in April, or however it works, then it would be that second meeting in April where whatever new council member would take over.
Well, we have our regular meeting, and then we recess that committee, and then council, and then we start a new one at that point. And don't we usually have council appointments at that one too?
Generally, the first after the election, what we've done here in the last few years is after the election, the first meeting is with the old council, and the new council takes over. We have the election of officers, and I don't think we've always done it, or it's been ready for that meeting to have the new aldermanic assignments. So it would be another 2 weeks. So the only thing we do for sure on the change is we elect new officers. We do the elected ones, plan commission, pro tem, president, so on.
Yeah. Do we want to put a clause in here that the alders will be assigned to committees at that, because that will give them 2 weeks, the mayor 2 weeks, right?
Should be plenty of time.
So when we do the election of officers, and then we would do the alders appointments to the committees at that same meeting.
I would think it should be plenty of time.
Yeah, so we could just keep the alders on the traditional schedule of appointments occurring by the third Tuesday in April, with everybody else. Because I mean, if I recall, the impetus for doing this a little bit later was to give Lori some time to be able to deal with the applications and all that kind of stuff, and process to get that before the mayor. But it seems like those concerns aren't really present with alders that get appointed to committees. So we could keep the aldermanic appointments to the same schedule and shift all the citizen and other appointments to kind of our revised.
So when you say the same schedule, do we actually have anything spelled out in the ordinance saying that it would be the second week in April?
In most of the various committees, it is
Okay.
term commencing the first day of May. I think that's pretty consistent. So we could just keep aldermanic appointments on that schedule, and then everyone else on our new revised schedule. Okay, and then let's see.
I'm just thinking, what if the
Well,
alderman doesn't
you're
want to
laughing
accept
at
defeat and they,
What's that?
what if the alderman doesn't want to accept defeat and they want to fight in court?
I know, I thought this was a very timely discussion.
Well, it
I'm not sure
Then
we have to worry
Jeremy
about that here.
comes to your door.
took this country how many years for that to happen to our presidency? So, although I shouldn't say that, I think it's 1800 whatever, or we've had contentious ones before. But at any rate,
That's true.
we haven't had that problem yet.
Okay.
So.
All right, so we'll just deal with that later.
Yeah, we'll-
Okay. All right, so do we have to go through the rest of the committees here too?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd like us to kind of,
Okay,
I
new
mean-
CLC.
yeah, let me just see if I want to take a look at what else I realized I didn't highlight some of my other. Oh, so here's going back up to the, the sub 5, kind of our general principles. So what I put in here in E is, I went through in a few places where we had like the city engineer being a member, and
Right.
so what I intended to deal with that, to make sure we had staff that were entitled to be part, is that that's the language in E there. The city administrator appointing department heads or employees of relevant city departments to serve as ex officio members of any body, to serve as staff. And so
Very good.
that'd basically just be up to Mike to decide what
Staff
staff is going to be,
needs.
at each committee. Does that seem like?
I like that.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think, had we talked about, I think the language in C is also new. Yeah, because we talked about, kind of how to generally deal with expertise. And,
What page are you on?
this is the very first page of the draft.
It's page 40 of the packet, if that helps.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I don't have the whole packet. Let's see, chapter.
I sent the draft ordinance by separate
Right.
email to everybody.
Yeah, I've got that.
And it's 5 pages.
So this is, where we have, every appointees are presumed to be adult residents. But this paragraph notwithstanding, whenever the ordinance creating the body calls for members with certain expertise, and if after reasonable efforts have been made to find a qualified city resident willing to serve fail, or if the residency or a member with such expertise changes. I think maybe I need to clean this up a little bit. Not sure if that language is as clear as I thought it was when I first wrote it, but
I think that's fairly typical for you attorneys.
well, it's not unusual. Yes, I try to write things and let a little time pass and review them again. The first review, it always says exactly what I think it says the first time.
Yeah, that's right. It's perfect.
Let's see. But to the extent any clarity can be gleaned from what I've got there in principle. So what I also wanted to deal with a little bit too is what happens when somebody's a resident but then they move, and they have expertise that somebody who is appointed as an expert and a resident, basically the idea is they would get to stay and serve out their term.
Mm.
Moving wouldn't automatically remove the person, provided they are appointed because of their expertise. But the implication also would be there, though, that anybody who was just an ordinary citizen appointee, that moving would render them ineligible to serve. And so if we would also want any citizen appointee that's not a resident to be able to serve out the term, we should include language to that effect. But right now, only non-resident experts would fill or complete their term.
Is this something that we would need Lori to track so that we know that
Yeah.
when she gives out the list of committee appointments, does she have to say this is an expert or non-expert?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it would have to be tracked. Yeah, we'd have to say that this person is serving as, this.
I wonder if there wouldn't be a place on the application where it could be like up in the corner, could say expert, and you could just put a check there, so it would be easy for Lori to refer to it, or anybody to refer to it.
Well, and then another category is like some of these committees have high school students on it. They'd want, you could have that also, so you'd know without a lot of digging back. Yeah.
Well, maybe this is something we can kind of put in the parking lot, and maybe in the interim, I can ask Lori to kind of how she currently tracks things and administratively how something like this might work. And in the meantime, you guys can kind of mull it over a little bit more too, in terms of what direction. But that's just something that we want to think about how this is going to work.
Yeah, think about how we're going to do it without it becoming so unwieldy.
Yeah.
Because
Or is it something that the staff person to the committee would be in charge of keeping track of?
It's not a bad idea.
Well, I kind of like it may depend exactly on how Lori currently tracks these things, but it seems to me that it shouldn't be a big issue to simply have another field in the list that shows this person, is a member appointed this time, but also, has this qualification or is somehow serving in this capacity. I just don't want to be presumptuous about that, but it does seem like that would be the best way, so that, annually when we're looking at, okay, these are the appointments that are up or things change, we have a central place where that information is placed.
And at this point, Lori keeps all that information together. And if we have it too many people, things get lost then in the.
Right. So like I said,
here's a twist I'd like to throw out there. I know a lot of times the people, they'll apply to a committee or several committees. They may be an expert in one of the committees, but they're assigned to a different committee.
well, right,
That they may not be
and
experts
in that case, they are serving just as an ordinary citizen, in which case.
Yeah, but when they fill out their application.
Right, yeah, I think we need some kind of record, not just of what they say in the application, but in what capacity has this person been appointed?
To that specific
Right.
committee, right?
And so the only real question is to Lori is something as a tracking system like that, workable, I guess, in her current.
Because if you want to take it even further and get more confusing with it, say you're on water resources and you're an expert, and water resources decides that they want you as the representative from water resources to CLC. Well, the reason that you're on CLC is because you have expertise from water resources. So you're still the expert. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But you're just
So you don't have to be a resident.
because you're still the expert. So this is where it just, we have to, if we can figure out some kind of simple way of doing it, because this is already starting to feel unwieldy.
Right.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah, it
Right.
almost feels like, we've started down this road to try to simplify this, but
And we're not doing it.
I'm not sure that we necessarily are. Yeah.
I don't know. I think we've made a lot of progress. I mean, just simply by saying, okay, the mayor can appoint, but they have to be confirmed by the council. I think that cleans it up, and the number of years clears it up. And we want people to be a resident unless these certain things, unless it's called out in the actual ordinance for that committee. And I think it's better.
I mean, obviously, the degree of complexity is somewhat dependent on, how many non-residents and expert we actually have serving. I mean, if as a practical matter, the number of non-residents that we have on our committees and all is relatively minimal, then a little bit of complexity that only affects a handful of people is not a big deal. But if it's a complexity that affects every single committee, and well, then we haven't helped ourselves much.
Well, if the council has to confirm these people, we will know if they're not residents. We will know if they're the experts.
Yeah,
We
no,
will have
here it's just the twist of trying to remember to answer in advance what happens if something changes in the middle of the term.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
If you're going to require somebody to be a resident, I mean, one solution here is to simply allow people to complete their terms. I mean, particularly if everyone's only serving for a 2-year term,
Right.
That might be another solution to go to. Because then if we say nobody loses their right to serve because of moving in the middle, well then, we don't have to monkey with.
And plus, it's not going to be like this forever. So at some point, if somebody moves, and if they move out of the area, they would resign.
And they might resign. Yeah, I mean, in all likelihood, in most circumstances, I would expect a person to resign for most of our committees. Now, others, like airport, for instance, there are a lot of people that aren't necessarily Middleton residents that have an interest in the area, but.
We have an example in the arts committee where we have an expert in art maintenance. She's an expert in like sculpture maintenance and how do you keep things from oxidizing. And she's just learned that she and her family are moving to Baraboo, and she's agreed to stay on, and especially easy with Zoom. But we really need her expertise while we look for somebody else. So she's going to serve out her term as
right
that way. So that example works out perfectly. And when her term is done, then she's done. And if she decides it's too hard, she can always, resign. And
Okay. So let's maybe flag that a little bit and continue to give that some thought. I'll certainly be reviewing the language again, see if clean up even what my current intent is. But so then moving down, we're getting into some of the specific provisions of water resources. Is the first.
You're in chapter 2. What page of chapter 2?
So yeah, if you want to kind of look alongside the actual existing ordinance, water resources 205 is on page 8.
2.05.
Yeah, section 2.05, starting on page 8 of chapter 2.
Okay, I think I can.
And so, for instance, in how constituted, I'm deleting none of whom shall be required to be residents of the city of Middleton, because we're saying required. Now, water resources could be one where we decide we don't want to require residency. So do we want to strike that or not?
Well, at this point, that's a perfect example, because at this point, Ken Potter's on it. He is not a resident of Middleton.
Right. So, yeah. So under this current formulation, what would happen is Ken would continue to serve out his term. I assume Ken would be one of two who possesses expertise in water resource management, engineering, or soil conservation.
Well, we have several. We have Ken, we have Warren, but
And that raises another issue too of, okay, so it's two of whom have to possess so water resources is one where we don't, for instance, have a specific seat for somebody with expertise.
It's an interesting committee in that, with the exception of me, pretty much everybody's an expert in some way, shape, or form. You know, they all bring in an expertise either through the DNR or through, you know, each one of them. So it's one of those committees where.
Well, is this a committee though where maybe we don't want to be at all burdened by the need to seek a resident?
Yes. I mean, you get in trouble sometimes when you make blanket statements. In a committee like Water Resources, we would like to have as much as possible, as many experts as possible. We're very fortunate in Middleton because we do have a lot of people in Middleton that can fill that bill. But if you know, if we just make a blanket statement that everybody has to be a resident, then it's going to be much harder, just because of the expertise that's needed. It's a little specialized.
Well, right, and you know, so under the way we've got the general rule worded, I'm not concerned that we'll be unable to get the expertise, but the concern does become where you've got a committee with so much expertise overall on the committee, and it's all sort of varied, and there may not necessarily be clear lines between one person's expertise and another. Do you want to get into the position of, okay, just taking Ken for instance, okay, well, now his term's over. Under our general language, it seems like we sort of need to take another run at somebody that may be a resident with expertise. Well, then you find somebody who's a resident, but do they have as much it does make it more difficult to sort of try to weight your choice towards the most expertise. And that's maybe a concern, particularly for water resources, and maybe for the general rules I've stated. And maybe we want to free us from any residential constraint when it comes to appointing somebody because of specific expertise.
On this committee.
Well, that question is valid for this committee, but it's also maybe something to keep in mind more generally.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, certainly this committee seems to be a good example of where maybe we don't want to cross out that language. Maybe we want to leave that language as it is and just say for water resources, at least, we don't want to, we don't want to have to be constrained by residency. Just get the experts.
I agree. I think that taking that restraint off allows whoever's the mayor to interview any applicant. And I'm hoping that, and I know we've maybe chatted about this in this committee, but I'm hoping that if we do have appointees from different areas, that Zoom will still be an option to attend a committee, and that keeps all the options available. So say you get some really, really hotshot expert who's in Arkansas and wants to be on the committee. Do we do it?
Well, I would hope we wouldn't have to go as
Far as
I
Arkansas.
understand. I'm just trying to really I'm just trying to think of
or no
any
slight on the state of
angle.
Arkansas either, but that we would have to.
Yeah,
Well, I think everybody's hope would be that whoever is the mayor would first look at all applications from the
I
residents
completely
of
agree.
Middleton. And if there were none, at that point, you would hope that
Then
in
you're
his or
not-
her selection
Right.
process, then they would move out from that point.
And
Yeah,
then
and
then they're open to, they're allowed to do that then. But yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. I
It's just
think
a
the
matter of whether
locals,
you want to leave that as sort of a, an unwritten rule, and, the unwritten rule may not always get followed, but as long as it's followed generally in respect, I mean, I think there probably is some sufficient political pressure to kind of keep it within the citizenry and be prepared to defend why you went outside the city. And so
sure.
I don't have any real particular concern with kind of being more relaxing on a residency requirement, particularly for water resources. So,
Yeah, I think that's wise.
so yeah, if that's the will of the committee, I would just then we would make no amendments to 2.05 turn 1.
Would there be any reason to say, and 5 citizen members, and due to the technical nature of this committee, no one is required? Or do you think that's,
Put some? It could. I mean, it seems to be a sort of self-evident, but
I'm just like, if somebody goes, well, this committee doesn't need to have them, but it's so much more technical than
Right.
others.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, when you look at all the committees and you read the order and you see that we have this specific statement, none of whom shall be required to be residents, and then it seems to me that the reason why not would ultimately be kind of self-evident, but we felt that a clearer statement of policy was necessary.
Well,
So
what,
Kathy, are you thinking, sorry to interrupt, are you thinking that they don't necessarily have to be residents is only for water resources, or are we gonna just make this like for all the committees?
I don't want to make it for all the committees. I don't think. And is that what
I'm
you're
thinking about the arts committee, and I think that it would totally work there too.
Well, I think you might have a better, I think this is going to be an exercise where you might, as you go through each of these committees and see what changes would need to be made to sort of conform with our general, and I mean, your feelings and thoughts might evolve on some of these issues.
Yeah.
I guess what I would propose we do is just kind of go through these things and not necessarily feel like we need to resolve each one now. I think let's see if we can kind of get a general direction. And at the end of this, let's kind of see where we think this goes. Because I mean, after what I've got here, I mean, there's another 6 or 7 committees that I haven't even started marking up yet. And
Okay.
so then under the 2.052, I have just being repealed. And that's all because I mean, I think the language for appointment of the chair or his or her member, I mean, I think that's sort of self-evident by how that position is constituted. I think the annual appointment is handled by so the chair of the commission, we want the committees appointing their own chairs, and then just how it should be. Long and short of that, I see B and C is essentially taken care of by our general thing. So that's why I have that whole 2.05 paragraph repealed. I think with the general term, I don't think any of that remains necessary.
Okay.
And I think that would be, that's all that would impact water resources. So next is the Plan Commission. And So the only thing, well, first thing is repealing that city engineer appointment that we discussed last time. And so the city engineer would no longer be an actual member, but presumably would be
Where is
Harry or
that?
Sean appointed.
Under 2.06, the one, how constituted,
Okay, let me see. The mayor.
the last sentence.
Okay, the city, okay, so the alternate member, okay, that's fine. In other committees, it says the chair of the Parks Recreation Commissioners or their designee, right? Other committees, they don't, they want
Yeah.
it to be the chair, but they also they can let it be someone else.
Right.
I doubt that they would give this up though, so.
Yeah. Well, and here, well, yeah, true. I don't know if that's something we want to change or not. That really isn't impacted by our general stuff, so I just
Yeah,
look at changing it. But if we want to also allow the chair of those, committees appointed designee.
I think that's how it read on the water resources.
That is
Or
how it reads for.
commissioner.
That is how it reads for water resources, and I think a few other committees.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
doesn't for this, and like I said, since it didn't change,
okay,
wasn't impacted by our new general principles, I didn't change that, but that's not the same.
yeah, that's fine. I don't know, Plan Commission, I kind of feel that these should be residents of Middleton.
Well, and they would be
Yeah,
under this, because we don't have
Yeah.
anybody. Yeah, I don't think.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't have experts per se, and
Power to employ experts.
yeah, yeah, that's different though. That's not
Yeah, so they can ask for experts anytime they want. Yeah,
right, but that's not
Yeah.
expertise on the committee. So.
Yeah.
Well, in this, it says, the Plan Commission citizen members shall be persons of recognized experience and qualifications. This is in the email that you sent us.
Yeah.
See that? How constituted the city plan commission?
Oh, yeah, it is in the in the how constituted there.
Yeah.
I overlooked that. Yeah, that's going to have.
So there you
Have
start to
some potential implications. I mean, I think the intent of that language there is, I don't think, intent to say, to have that there's some specific expertise. I mean, I think for any committee, I think you're often looking for people that have some sort of knowledge in the area.
I would hope so.
But yeah, I do think that language does potentially create some ambiguities depending on what we do with that general principle about expertise on a committee and whether that gives you any special status to remain as a resident. Let's see.
How do you feel about this 2/3 vote by the Common Council to appoint an alderperson? Do you think that's necessary or just a simple majority?
I'd have to double check that, but I think that may be statutory.
Dan or Katie, do you have a preference if it's not statutory?
I don't care.
I don't care if it's not statutory.
So if it's not statutory, you'd prefer it to be majority?
Just simple majority, I would think.
Okay.
It's usually a landslide anyway, right, Dan?
Mm.
Yeah, it just depends on how anxious people are to, I assume Plan Commission is typically one of the longer.
Who wants to give up every Tuesday night?
There generally isn't a huge host of volunteers.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on Plan Commission that we can think of?
Forgive my lack of memory on this one. Were the different committees going to be different terms? Or did we just decide that they were all going to be a certain number of
No,
year
this
terms?
this one, I'm pretty certain that the 3-year term is statutory.
Okay.
It is. I'm looking at 6223 right now, Matt. It does say 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does it say anything about the vote for the alderperson?
I'm looking at that right now. I haven't gotten too far.
Okay, if
into
you
it.
find anything.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I see it.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Anything
Thank you for
pops out right
researching
there.
that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like now all these Zoom meetings, I really do need to get a second monitor.
Well, that's
Yeah, like I'm on my phone and on the
I've got Zoom
iPad.
here. I suppose I could use my tablet for that.
I've got two screens and a laptop, so I actually
Oh, no.
Oh boy, you win.
yeah.
Set up for
No.
world domination now.
It's
Yeah.
one of the things you never thought was necessary until you have it. And now you can't live
Right.
without it.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I have 2 screens and a telephone going, so.
Yeah.
Jeepers.
So are we good with that? You got enough information
I
yet?
got my notes there. Yeah.
Board of review.
Yeah. So that's going to be largely statutory. The only thing that I did there is I just deleted the board shall elect its own chair because the general provision establishes that. So
Mm.
it doesn't really substantively change anything.
And these terms, boy, this is I don't know. I'm sorry to say I don't know much about this board of review. I didn't realize they were compensated.
Oh.
Hmm.
Although another thing, let's see.
Is there an alder on this?
Oh no, I skipped board of review and let's see, board of review is 2.07.
It doesn't have one listed.
Right. Yeah, but so board of review I didn't make any changes to because it is all statutory.
Okay.
So we actually, as well as, so I think the next set of changes,
And so is the police commissioners.
police commissioners is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we're up to board of the Public Works Committee, and then the only change there that I found was basically repealing sub 3, which is all the appointment stuff.
And not having a city engineer.
Well, right, yeah, that would go along with it. Most of that
Yep.
would be taken care of by the general provisions, and then also eliminating the engineer.
Sounds good. Do they need any expertise?
Public
Well,
Works?
probably on some level, maybe, but again, this seems to have been just fine as a committee that
Yeah.
functions by whomever we see, we're seeking out to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Public Works, it just says subject to confirmation by the Common Council. So it doesn't have that definition.
Well, okay. So we're going to get rid of the appointment part of it and everything else should be okay, huh?
Yep, I believe so.
Okay.
Then we're up to PRFC.
Parks.
So here's where just how constituted and just getting rid of the mention of the election of its own chair, because that would now be taken care of by the general. And then similar to the others, just repealing the appointment provisions because they are taken care of by the general.
Okay.
So the library board is statutory, as is the CDA.
Did we do something with the city forester? Didn't we have a conversation about that before?
Yeah, I still have kind of a note on that.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
not sure I figured out how best to resolve that, but since it's not strictly speaking a committee thing, but I still have that flag. I think if we do something with that, I would maybe write that up as a separate ordinance.
Okay. Because up to this point, I don't believe we haven't in my time had an appointment by the mayor for that.
Right. All right. Where am I? 214. So that takes us up to
CDA?
yeah, the CDA is all
Statutory.
Yeah.
Is it the number of years and everything? I mean, these are 4-year
Yep.
terms. I didn't know
Yep.
that. Wow.
Yeah, all of that is
Good for them.
I had no idea.
Neither.
I'm on it.
You just stay on until somebody tells you, okay, you're
Oh my
done.
God. Take me off.
Well,
Okay.
it says in here the alders only serve during their time in elected office. So
Oh, well, yeah, right.
Okay, then.
Commission on Youth. So
We don't have to do an emergency government. Okay.
yeah, here are the changes again. Having the city recreation, it's no longer as an alternate member.
No, right.
They would again be the ex officio member assigned by the city administrator. 2 is the appointment stuff that just, I think, can just be repealed.
We don't need a secretary
No.
on the election of officers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, election, we don't need an election of officers either.
Right.
Did I have that? 2, 4. Yeah, I've got, subs 2, 3, and 4
Mm-hmm.
all being, I mean, repealing 4 just because we don't have that in any
Okay.
meetings are called by the chair, vice chair, notices. I mean, we don't have that level of detail in anyone else. So,
Okay.
although I wonder if maybe that should be language that we should put in the general.
Yeah, I guess there wouldn't be anything wrong with putting that in the general reserve. Meeting is called.
Okay.
And I also like that line about in accordance with the open
Right.
meetings law. I don't know
Yeah,
if
it
that's
just
in
is it
anything.
necessary, maybe not, but it seems like a good thing to just
Mhm.
be
Yeah.
clear on.
Yeah, makes it
Um,
okay.
So, okay.
Golf course.
So here it looks, yeah. So I've repealed the appointment and term stuff, and then in the how constituted on the mayor designee kind of dealt with.
Well, that's weird because now the mayor is a 3-year term. Shouldn't that be any different than an alder person doing 1-year terms?
Well, because there's
Because
only one mayor.
Right, but if he has a designee,
Then that's his designee, so that should be for whatever the term is that the mayor has left.
The policy here is that right now this is a seat that is solely the mayor's.
okay,
And so whether he wants to do it, he or she wants to do it, or they want their designee to do it, right now the policy is that's the mayor's seat to control. That's not the council's to
Right.
approve. And so,
but we have to change the wording on this because if it says 2-year terms ending on the odd numbered years, that's not how it is any longer with him being a 3-year mayor.
well, let's see. Oh, how do I? How constant? Oh yeah, but I have that language being the 2-year term part being deleted.
Okay.
Does everyone
Okay.
have the red line version of?
I'm looking at it in the agenda packet, I think.
I am
so.
too. I don't have the red line.
Yeah, I don't have a red line
Oh,
version.
you went to all that work and we're not.
Well, unfortunately, what happens sometimes is now with what Word does now, it gives you simple markup or all markup. And if I send a Word version, unless you have your Microsoft Word set to show all markup, you won't see the red line. You'll just see, well, however the version of markup is. Or I don't.
Matt, could you share your screen? What did I just say?
Well, normally I could, but now I'm on Zoom through my home line and looking at the ordinance through my virtual private network on the same screen, but I'm not sure if I can.
And did you say you sent it you sent it?
As an attachment on Friday?
Yeah, that's an email attachment.
In the email?
It's not the packet, is it?
No, when I sent it to Jeremy, I copied all of you with the actual attachment.
Got it.
You have that separately someplace.
No.
Just to be able to look at it. I knew you had nothing better to do all weekend than to.
Right. Oh, now if I open. I don't see any red lines. I'll have to do the.
Yeah, so if you go to review, and then next to the review tab.
Okay.
It
Got it.
It's see where it says it probably says simple markup, and if you make it say all markup.
Can you guys see what I have shared here?
Yes.
This is the document you sent, Matt. So if you can.
Yeah. So that's what you're showing. It's in simple markup mode.
Okay. Well, let's see if I can. How did you say go about that?
So go to review, and then where it says track changes, there should be the very next little thing on the menu.
Yep.
If you go to all markup, that should show you all the redlining.
This is a 5-page document, right?
That sounds right.
Is this looking better?
Yeah.
Oh,
See red
yay.
lines.
Hey, look at that.
So whereabouts did you want me on this?
Where were we? We're on about down right now on the Commission on Youth 2.14. So wherever we're getting into that.
So this is
2.06, 2.03. At least another page.
Oh,
Oh wait,
here we
yeah,
go.
here's okay.
that one there.
Yeah. So you see there, that's where I'm deleting that stuff.
Gotcha.
Oh, now, yeah, so we further down, I guess we had started talking about Pleasant View Golf Course Advisory Committee.
So is that
If we scroll down. a little
Ah,
bit.
okay.
going
No,
up or down?
no, wrong way, go south.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go. There it is.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Yeah,
That's better.
so that's kind of how I'm,
Oh, okay, so you already took care of that, and concurrent with the term of the mayor, okay.
Got it.
again,
Nice.
Oh, this is so much easier now.
I know. Oh my God.
Sorry, I should have thought about it a while ago.
No, this is great. Thank you, Jeremy.
Learning curve.
Yeah.
and so, well, you can see, I mean, deleting the appointment term of the
Yeah.
and the amendment to the operations, I think just, again, we already have in the general, the committee selects its own officers.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I mean, this is, I suppose, a little different that says the committee may call upon the administrator, but I think the language saying the administrator can appoint
Mhm.
also sort of implies that if he doesn't, the committee could ask the administrator to appoint somebody too.
But yeah, this is way more succinct. I like it.
So moving down a little further, then that takes us to, oh, CLC. How did I get past that? Oh, there we go. Okay. So similar, if you go down a little further, I think what it shows me is that I probably just, yeah, eliminated the appointments. Yeah, and then doctored up the how constituted language again, just to.
Subsequent appointment. Do you want immediately prior? It's already underlined. Immediate prior. Immediately.
Oh, down. Oh, this immediately prior. Yeah. That's that. Yeah, that's kind of our still. Yeah, that should be changed. That doesn't have anything to do with the
No, I know.
ELC. That's kind of our sort of uncodified part that explains how we integrate our new system into with our existing. But yes, that should be immediately. So if there are no questions about that, I've got a little list of things to clean up. I guess what I suggest, you know, maybe sometime in between now and the next time, spend a little bit of time with this just to make sure you don't have any other questions.
Okay.
Stuff, but we can certainly go over some of this again. But what I will do is kind of follow up on my notes here, and then I don't see any reason why I couldn't kind of present the rest of the committees and what the changes would look like. And you know, certainly by the next meeting, if we're, I don't know if we'll be done, but we should be a long way to seeing what this is going to look like.
Yeah, we're getting a lot closer. This is working out.
Yeah. Thank you for doing all this.
Go ahead.
That's great. Okay. Let's see, where am I here? Over the minutes.
Pretty good timing. I kind of picked, I think, the right place to stop.
Yeah.
Assuming
well
we
done.
all kind of like an hour-long meeting. I thought,
Okay, we have
do.
one more thing here, right? For Jeremy would like to discuss a report of incidents at licensed premise Pit Stop Express, 3303 Parmenter Street.
So just real briefly, just kind of keep you guys filled in. This is a licensed premise. I think they have some level of alcohol license, but also this dealt specifically with tobacco products. We did put out a press release for this. Let me just pop that up. I have a whole bunch of documents open here. So on November 3rd, we put out a press release regarding an October 29th incident where an employee there had been charged with some child sex offenses regarding a 14-year-old victim who reported that she had been exchanging some nude images in exchange for some free tobacco products. The victim also had engaged in some sexual activity with the employee there. That subject has been arrested and charged with some pretty significant crimes regarding that incident. But it also brought up, I was not aware at the time, but our detective lieutenant shared with me that kind of over the last, sorry, I'm trying to open these reports here, dating back to late fall of about a year ago, we had gotten some anonymous tips. There were 2 anonymous tips about the same type of behavior taking place. They were anonymous, so we had really nothing to follow up on. Our officer at that time went in and made contact with the person working there and told them of the complaint. And that was kind of the end of it at that point because we couldn't substantiate anything with the anonymous complaint. Let's see, August of this year, we had another complaint where we had some names that they could follow up on with juveniles, but it was kind of third-hand information. And that case was still open when we got to this current one where the subject was actually arrested. So that second case, we're pretty confidently able to link to the same suspect who had been arrested there. So it sounds like it might have been going on for at least, well, I don't know how long this exact employee who had been arrested has been working there. The information I had initially was that he'd been there for about 6 months. So dating back to that August incident would be able to be linked to him likely based on the information that we have. The prior incident about a year ago last fall might not be able to be related to him, probably cannot, and therefore may be indicative of an ongoing issue at that licensed premise. So just want to make you guys aware of it. Obviously, some pretty serious allegations and charges popping out of that. And again, it's a licensed establishment, so I figured I'd let you guys be aware of it.
At what point does the renewal come up?
Well, so I don't usually see the cigarette license renewals, and I can look into that further unless, Matt, you know off the top of your head. Those don't even usually make it to me. I talked to Lori about that, and she said, well, no, I usually just take care of those because they're, once they've been approved for a location, it's just a renewal. Unless there's significant issues, then there's no reason for me to get involved in that. So I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out.
But they also, you said, have an alcohol license?
I think they do. I'd have to confirm that with Lori. That's one thing I forgot to ask her when I talked to her earlier this week.
And this is just an employee, though, correct?
Correct. It is not the owner. It is an employee.
Ex-employee.
I don't know that for sure, but one can hope.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Right.
so.
Well, yeah, particularly, I guess, if this stuff is occurring on the premises. Was he a licensed operator?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. Are there licensed operators for tobacco? I mean,
We do not do operators licenses for tobacco.
No, not for tobacco, but for
the alcohol?
The alcohol. Yeah, and I don't know if he is. I can look into that as well. We do not, to my knowledge, we don't have any complaints about underage alcohol sales. It's all for the tobacco products.
My.
I just realized that the establishment on the corner there at Parmenter and Century is that empty?
The Hardee's.
Yeah.
It is out of business now, yeah.
And so is this place right next to it?
It's basically just south of there, yes. That gas station, right, just south of there.
Okay. Eek.
So I can definitely look into those other issues. And again, I don't know what his current employment status is, but I can certainly find out if he's licensed.
Yeah, it sounds like those types of offenses would fall under kind of the exemptions under the, employment discrimination, licensing
Right.
rules. And particularly since there seems to be stuff going on directly in the licensed premises.
Yep. Yeah, the allegations are that the stuff took place at the business.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah, seems worth some following up on
Okay.
to see. Yeah. That seems like there could be potential impacts to licenses there, either for his or the business. If maybe not quite as clear about the business, depending on the facts, but certainly serious enough where we'll look into it.
Okay.
Yeah, it warrants more question.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I will look into those questions tomorrow and get it back to you guys.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. End of the agenda. Motion to adjourn, anyone?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Hi.
All right.
Meeting adjourned.
Isn't it,
Thank you.
isn't it 9
Thank you
o'clock
all.
now already?
That's what it feels like, right?
I still think we're under a tornado watch, aren't we?
I got canceled, but with wind advisory.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's
And
good.
it's still pretty windy.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Night.
guys.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
Night.
Bye.